Hello everyone, today I'm going to tell you the story of the grazer, the scammer who caused a lot of damage. Hundreds of thousands of victims, what am I saying? Several million victims around the world. Today we are going to talk about the biggest grazer of all time. It is still relevant today and you will see that it is still talked about. 2 million people scammed in Europe, $400 million embezzled with its network in just 3 years. In short, it did a lot of damage, like all other grazers. Whether you are a small or large grazer, the victims suffer the same damage, and sometimes it can unfortunately go further. Like so many people who have been scammed by these web manipulators who only seek to enrich themselves at the expense of others. Know that I will always continue to be behind them, and I will do my best to go even further than them. I know that there are a lot of scammers who watch my videos. You will have exactly the same outcome as the scammer in the story that I am about to tell you. Well, without further ado, let's begin the story of the greatest grazer of all time. This is the story of the greatest grazer of all time. His name is Raymond Olorunwa Abbas, known under the pseudonym Hush Puppy. Even in the professional world he is more called Yahoo Boy, that's what he was called on the internet. Born on October 11th, 1982, in Lagos, Nigeria, into a modest family, even a little. His father was a taxi driver and his mother a seller of traditional bread in a popular market. They still had a job and were able to provide for their children. But for Hush Puppy, also known as Yahoo Boy, it wasn't enough. He was young, he dreamed of a life that was a little more comfortable. A dream life like he saw in films and series, except that at that time in Nigeria in the 2000s, it was real life. When you went out, you didn't have luxury boutiques like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, or the possibility of traveling by private jet. You lived day by day. And that's when Hush Puppy decided to quit his studies to become a second-hand clothing seller. He did that for a while, and he would have done that for a good 10 years between 2008 and 2009. And for Hush Puppy, it's still not a loco's life. Earning a little money is good, but having a lot is better. So in parallel with his job as a clothes seller, in the evening after the market he went to internet cafes. Until now it was for fairly standard use, going on social networks, talking to friends, checking emails, etc. And it was in internet cafes that he joined Facebook groups, more forums where he met a few browsers of the time, most of them based in Malaysia. And what do you think he will do to our Hush Puppy? That's it, yes. But there is one of you out there who found it. He will simply emigrate to Malaysia. In general, when you change your life or emigrate to a country you don't know, it's mainly to work there in a field and live a peaceful life. That's exactly what he's not going to do. Hush Puppy will instead join a very important Nigerian community in Malaysia, and it is there that he will take his first steps in grazing. It starts with small scams, near banking, sentimental manipulation, classified ads. In short, a real Swiss Army knife. These scams are starting to pay off well for him, and little by little he specializes in the spoofing scam. Basically everything is based on phishing. It retrieves email address databases, and then it appears as a message where it tells you that someone tried to connect to your account, that you need to change the password by clicking on the link, etc. So it recovers the password, the email address, and that's it. Once the victim's password is recovered, he will send a message to all his contacts pretending to be the victim, telling them that she had a hard time and that they need to help her by sending a certain amount of money. And I'm sure you know at least one person who has received this kind of message. So even today, in 2023, this scam continues to prove its worth. Hush Puppy was a bit of a precursor to this scam, and Hush is going to make a lot of money in Malaysia. Today it is almost impossible to estimate the damage he did during this period. He's not going to settle for the usurpation scam. Hush Puppy will take the next step and set up its own network. From now on he is no longer a simple grazer in a super calf, but he will create a whole structure where he will train several dozen grazers who will work for him. And in just a few months, he will go from a simple seller of second-hand clothes to a very important person of grazers. A grazer, very important person, is the hierarchical term used by grazers to designate the leader, the boss. He dreamed of it. Now Hush Puppy has a lot of money. Business is doing pretty well in Malaysia. Hush Puppy is making his little return to Nigeria, to his hometown Lagos. He traveled back and forth a bit, running his scam business in Malaysia. The guy left for Malaysia with nothing, and a few months later he came back in Gucci. Normal, everyone was asking the question, and he told them that he had made his fortune in real estate in Malaysia, where he had companies that were doing quite well, etc., etc. Chattering is simply chatting. But he didn't really dare say that. And as you know, a mother has what we call the sixth sense. A mother feels things, a mother understands everything, and she felt that this money was not very, very legitimate, so she often tried to warn him and warn him. My son, if you do shit or scam people with all this money you bring us, you should be ashamed. We don't want your dirty money. And instead of listening to his mother's advice, what will he do, Rush Puppy? Well, quite the opposite. He will start to display all his fortune on social networks. He now lives in Dubai. Luxury car, luxury watch, travel, private jet and restaurants in the biggest palaces in the amount. The town of Halakay finally got him, and all with money swindled from the victims. And like the boss of a national campaign, Rush Puppy will diversify into grazing. It would have caused more than 2 million victims in Europe alone. He will even set up entities and schemes to launder all this money. He is at the peak, followed by more than 2,500,000 followers on Instagram. He lives his life as a star, except that I remind you that, with the victim's money, and he's not going to be satisfied with that. For Rush Puppy, you always need more. Now he has a real team behind him. The scams work quite well. He is now in the big leagues. And here we are not talking about a simple grazer who causes a few €100 of damage, but several million euros, several €100 million. And when you have reached such a level of scam, you only meet big heads. And above all, you do bigger and bigger crazy things. In February 2019, he participated in a cyber heist with North Korean hackers, where they managed to steal nearly €15 million from a Maltese bank. In October 2019, he defrauded a client of a law firm, €1 million in damage. He is even at the head of an attempted fraud on a football club, $100 million, €124 million. Nothing stops him. He had set up a whole system to launder this money. He laundered tens, even hundreds of millions of euros. Obviously, all this with accomplices, even sometimes high-ranking people. Okay, it tackles large structures, etc. But on the other hand, it still continues to cause damage to individuals and ordinary people. Always with increasingly sophisticated file methods, where it diverts and recovers funds and payments from accounts all over the world. And one of these most recent scams, he allegedly embezzled a few $1 million in aid intended for victims of COVID-19. He will even be at the head of sales of respirators during the first wave of COVID-19. Unstoppable. But at some point, when you do crazy things while displaying such a lifestyle, and say that you are in real estate, you have to expect repercussions. And Hush Puppy will go to the checkout, and he will pay very, very dearly for it. It's starting to weigh a little on our grazer. He is starting to be pinned and denounced everywhere on social networks. Even one of his best friends' children is named Kimaya, who became a rapper. He displays it in one of his raps where he clearly calls him a scammer, that the money he displays is stolen money, that he's going to get into trouble soon, etc., etc., and that's what's going to happen. Now, Hush Puppy, he is the target of several investigations. Cyber traffic, it doesn't last its spending of money. In short, the total. This is starting to feel very bad for Hush. Afterwards, it must be said that he also left his traces wherever he set foot. The FBI and Interpol begin investigating him. And I can say that we have the FBI and Interpol on our ass. It really stinks like shit. He's involved in so many cases that he doesn't even know where to start. And meanwhile, Hush Puppy still continues a star life on Instagram by publishing photos or even posts, sometimes even provocative, until the day he failed. He made a fatal mistake that would cost him his freedom. He posted a screenshot where he just forgot to hide his email address. Ah, the bastard. He doesn't know, but he comes from when he is followed by 2,900,000 people at his prime, then was closed in March 2022 by Instagram for fear of bad influence. The FBI and the Interpol. The email address, he saw it himself. It was linked to bank accounts through which millions of euros sometimes passed. And this email address was linked to other email addresses belonging to Hush Puppy, with which he managed his social networks, Instagram, Snapchat, and even his own Apple account. I'm not going to draw you a picture, but requisition, Instagram, the giant Facebook, Apple, etc. They blew it. Like that, they gave everything. Telephone numbers linked to his private accounts, and so on. A real borderline. During months of investigation and phone calls for the FBI, it is time to limit the damage. He decides to act. One day, Hush Puppy was sitting quietly in his luxury apartment in Dubai. He enjoyed his dream life as an allocate, and in June 2020, he received a little visit. But it wasn't a little visit like, can we go back? But it was more of a visit of this type, a major FBI operation in collaboration with the Dubai police. They just got their hands on Hush Puppy. They are fulfilled. There were a good dozen present on the scene in his right arm, Woodbury. Woodbury, who displayed an equally comfortable lifestyle on Instagram. Terminus. Everyone gets off. They just arrested everyone. Everyone is handcuffed. They take everyone on board. The FBI on site recovered $40 million in cash. $40 million. Like, at what point you have $40 million in cash at home and you're like, hey, that's okay, bye. No. Well, no, it's not goodbye. They seized 13 luxury cars worth $7 million, 21 computers, and it wasn't esports that was the problem, 47 phones, and several dozen hard drives with a list of 2 million victims. He has his accomplices starting to fall one after the other. Hush Puppy is no more. Finished. Today he faces up to 20 years in prison, and even the death penalty. You shouldn't touch the heads, my friend. And Hush Puppy ends up throwing it all in the cave, including a police officer named Ali Baba. And Ali Baba helped him a lot in his business. The police officer in question has just been suspended from all his duties, and now he's got the FBI on his ass too. Yahoo Boy's judgment was due to appear in May 2021, but taking into account the health crisis, it was postponed until August 2021. After being extradited from the United Arab Emirates, the crook Ramon Abbas was pursued by American justice for laundering tens of millions of dollars. The influencer is described by the FBI as one of the world's most prolific money launderers. Ramon Abbas, also known as Ray Hush Puppy, also known as Yahoo Boy, was sentenced on November 8 to 11 years in prison in Los Angeles for electronic fraud, money laundering to the tune of $400 million, and identity theft.